This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. My name is Eben Jansen. This show is live and broadcast from our studios in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube as we speak, really, with the entire show then available on our YouTube channel all of the time. Oscar Pistorius is expected to make an appearance at the Weskoppies Psychiatric Institution this morning. We'll be crossing live there shortly. We look at South Africa's new cabinet after the first break and a feature on informal trading in Johannesburg and another fares increase on the Gautrain on the cards. But first, here are our top stories. South Africa has a new cabinet. Last night, President Jacob Zuma announced changes in finance and the security cluster. New faces have been brought in and some ministers have lost their jobs. Nene is now the finance minister. Members of the new cabinet are expected to focus on the struggling economy, which has been battling to create much-needed jobs and alleviate poverty. 7 people died in taxi violence that has flared up again on the Cape Peninsula. Taxi associations are fighting over routes after permits were allocated to newcomers. Locals say they live in fear. No arrests have been made. At least 24 people have been killed when Boko Haram gunmen raided a village in northeast Nigeria. The militant group had recently stepped up deadly attacks on villages in recent months. Meanwhile, in the Nigerian capital of Abuja, prayers were held calling for peace, unity and the safe return of more than 200 schoolgirls abducted by Boko Haram last month. Demonstrators have vowed to continue their protests until the safe return of the girls. Paralympic star Oscar Pistorius will today start a 30-day period of psychiatric evaluation at Weskoppies Psychiatric Hospital in Pretoria. Pistorius will be treated as an outpatient and must present himself at the hospital every weekday at 9 a.m. A legal expert said Pistorius' psychiatric evaluation could affect both the verdict and, if he is convicted, the sentencing. Judge Thokozile Masipa ruled last Tuesday that Pistorius undergo mental examination to determine whether he was at the time of the commission of the offence criminally responsible for shooting and killing his girlfriend Reva Steenkamp on Valentine's Day last year. Pistorius will be back in court on the 30th of June. Now, SABC reporter Griselda Lewis has been camping outside Weskoppies Hospital since this morning and joins us live. Good morning, Griselda. Thank you for joining us.
Well, very good morning to you, Eben.
Early start for you, Griselda. It's just after 9 o'clock. Just tell us, has Oscar Pistorius already reported to start his examination this morning?
Well, that's right, Eben. Oscar Pistorius arrived here at the Weskoppies Psychiatric Hospital at about 9:15 to a large media contingent that has been waiting for him to arrive here on the first of the 30 days of the psychiatric evaluation which he'll undergo at this facility. Media have been camped outside here since about 6 o'clock this morning. You'll know today is the first day when Judge Thokozile Masipa ruled that he must undergo that evaluation, so we're able to determine his true state of mind when he shot and killed Reva Steenkamp.
How has his arrival been received at the institution there this morning?
Well, as you can see here towards my right here, but there is quite a large police presence here, and certainly the hospital has taken extra measures to ensure that the media are kept on this side of the gate. There are some staff members who have been given lists to check for people who are accessing the premises. So basically security is quite tight here this morning, and the hospital's not leaving anything to chance.
Tell us about the media contingent there, and also give us a little insight into the facility itself and then what we can expect to be happening the next 30 days.
Well, Eben, as I said, there's quite a large media contingent that has been camped outside this facility since this morning, waiting to get pictures of Oscar Pistorius on the first day as he reports to the psychiatric facility. Well, he will undergo psychometric tests for the next 30 days, and of course that report is crucial to determine how the Oscar Pistorius murder trial moves forward, and that it will determine whether Oscar Pistorius is criminally responsible for shooting and killing Reva Steenkamp on that day, you would know that Oscar Pistorius' state of mind is what has been crucial to this case. What was Oscar Pistorius thinking? What was Oscar Pistorius thinking on the morning that he shot and killed Reeva Steenkamp? So certainly this report is what will give us some insight into that. You'll recall Judge Thokozile Masipa saying that it would be in the interest of justice for this to happen following the testimony of Dr. Merrill Foster, who said that Oscar Pistorius has a general anxiety disorder and basically linked that to his actions on the morning that he shot and killed Reeva Steenkamp. So get this out of the way so that the case can proceed, and as you said, on the 30th of June.
Prosecution and defence, are they at all or in any way participating in proceedings at the hospital, Griselda?
Well, yes, Eben, from the four experts who will be evaluating Oscar Pistorius, there is one that is from the Weskoppies psychiatric facility, as well as one person from the state, as well as from the defense. Basically, what Judge Thokozile Masipa said is that this panel of experts, to give their opinion, instead of taking the one opinion of the defense psychiatrist who testified, Dr. Merrill Foster, it would be much better to get a much clearer view from a panel of experts who would be able to determine what Oscar Pistorius's true state of mind is. You'll recall as well that Oscar Pistorius's outpatient status has really caused quite a stir, in that questions have been raised about how Oscar Pistorius will be truly evaluated, how his sleeping patterns, for example, will be able to be monitored, given that he is an outpatient. You'd know that Oscar Pistorius will be evaluated from 9 o'clock until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So those questions have been raised by clinical psychologists, who are also saying that it's very uncommon what we're seeing here, Oscar Pistorius being an outpatient, in that they're saying he was supposed to be admitted to this facility for 30 days. So that certainly is something we're looking to.
Thank you very much, Griselda Lewis, live outside the Weskoppies Psychiatric Hospital this morning. Of course, Oscar Pistorius, we can report that he has been admitted there this morning to start his 30-day mental observation. Now, the murder trial of the Blade Runner has now entered a new phase. So it is now focusing on the former Olympic track star's mental health, a move prompted by a defense witness, forensic psychiatrist Dr. Merrill Foster, who had diagnosed Pistorius with general anxiety disorder. There's been a lot of talk, speculation, even jokes about general anxiety disorder and what it actually is. Joining us now in our Cape Town studio is Dr. David Rosenstein to help us clear up the myths and bring us more facts about GAD. Good morning, Dr. Rosenstein. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Dr. Rosenstein, can you just tell us what general anxiety disorder is?
Generalized anxiety disorder is one of the anxiety disorders. It's a fairly common diagnosis. It makes up part of the full spectrum of anxiety disorders, which in and of themselves make up a large proportion of mental health conditions that affect our population at large. And it's typically characterized by a pervasive chronic form of anxiety that affects the individual for quite a long time. The specifics of the psychiatric diagnosis are a minimum of 6 months, but the individual is quite functionally affected. So it would affect areas of his life, possibly work, social life, relationships, and it's having quite a large impact on those areas of the individual's life.
Would this then be linked to depression, and how would that affect a person's decision-making under duress?
Well, it can be linked to depression. We found in some of the research that prolonged or protracted generalized anxiety disorder can make an individual quite vulnerable to depression. There isn't a lot of evidence that sort of points towards generalized anxiety disorder leading an individual to sort of being potentially dangerous or harmful. An individual may have generalized anxiety disorder, but there is likely to be other psychological, psychiatric things going on in a case where an individual would be, possibly dangerous or do things that are aggressive or harmful.
Doctor, I want to ask you, you say that this is quite a common condition. Lots of people walking the streets right now, they suffer from this condition. Just paint the picture for us of the threat that these people then would pose to the general population.
Well, you know, there's no real threat, really, in individuals that have generalized anxiety disorder. And from what we understand in studies of its prevalence, so how common this condition is, we know roughly between about 2 to 4% of the population at any one time would suffer from generalized anxiety disorder. In South Africa, it's about 2 to 3%, according to the South African Stress and Health Study. That's a survey of mental health conditions. So a large proportion of people do have generalized anxiety disorder, but they're really not in and of themselves a potential danger because of the condition.
I wanted to ask you about the mental observation that Oscar Pistorius will now be undergoing at Weskoppies. The treatment as an outpatient, do you as a professional, do you think that you can still get the results by treating someone as an outpatient who has this condition, or can they just show up and maybe fake it for the 9 to 4 that they're there?
I mean, I think part of the evaluation process may extend beyond just looking at generalized anxiety disorder. They'll probably consider a whole range of other conditions that he may be presenting with, possibly a personality profiling, a range of what we'd call psychometric evaluations, which would look at a whole broad range of also traits and behavioral patterns. Being an outpatient, in terms of treatment, it's a preferred treatment for generalized anxiety disorder, but in terms of a forensic evaluation, which is probably their aim, it's generally done on an inpatient basis. It would be possible. It depends on the nature of their strategy and how they'll be evaluating him.
Is there treatment for this type of disorder? How would you treat it if you were faced with me as a patient? Well,
the predominant form of treatment is a type of psychological therapy called cognitive behavior therapy. And there's various forms of cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT, that are quite effective in helping these individuals to manage their symptoms of anxiety and to manage the kinds of impacts that it has. Some of these individuals do require psychiatric or medical treatment as well, where there's a combination of medicines they may take in conjunction with the CBT. And the treatments, by and large, are quite successful and really can help these individuals in the long term.
Dr. Rosenstein, David Rosenstein, thank you for joining us from Cape Town. That was a live link giving us his views as a professional on what generalized, as he called it, generalized anxiety disorder. Live from Cape Town, that was. Let's take a quick look at international news. What is happening in the US papers? Well, details continue to emerge from this weekend's shooting rampage in California. The shooting near a college campus in what authorities described as premeditated mass murder left 7 people dead. Authorities are now looking at a threatening YouTube video allegedly posted by the shooter. Now, before the shooter, Elliot Rodger, set out on a deadly rampage through the seaside college town that ended with 7 dead and 13 injured, he calmly laid out his plans on YouTube. The 22-year-old posted a YouTube video entitled Elliot Rodger's Retribution before he allegedly killed 6 people, at least 3 of them University of California, Santa Barbara students. Looking directly into the camera, Rodgers says he would slaughter every single spoilt, stuck-up blonde in a campus sorority house because girls had often rejected him. That video is available on our Facebook page with sound, with a warning to sensitive viewers out there. Fact is often stranger than fiction. You can go look at that video on our Facebook page, as I said. Let's take a look at some of your comments and pictures now. Our producer, Anine Dormel, is at Weskoppies this morning, taking photos and tweeting, interacting with you, so you can follow her our Twitter page at SABC Newsroom on Twitter, that is, for more. Here are some of the pictures that she's sending in. As you can see, it's been a hive of activity outside the Weskoppies Psychiatric Hospital this morning. Oscar Pistorius made his appearance, shortly after 8:30 as he starts his 30 days evaluation. There you have pictures from our producer, Anine Dormiel, that you see coming in from Weskoppies outside of Pretoria. Oscar Pistorius went in there to start his 30-day psychiatric evaluation process this morning. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. We'll be back after a short break.
South Africans survived 2014.
Many of us actually were given bursaries by state-owned enterprises, but the state shrunk, telecom was privatized, and now you are sitting with huge unemployed people, but huge backlogs in terms of infrastructure that could develop the same young people.
It's in our hands, and our future is up to us. It's a tough year, and tough decisions will have to be made by the government. It's an election year, which makes it difficult to make tough decisions. I mean, it's tough to make tough decisions. It's especially tough in an election year.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays 2 p.m. on SABC News.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Welcome back here with Newsroom on SABC News. Now, street traders were given the go-ahead to resume with trading in the city of Johannesburg recently. They say very little has been done from the city side to help build a good working relationship. The South African National Traders Alliance, SANTRA, says it has requested in writing the city manager's office to facilitate an all-inclusive engagement process between the city and traders, but they are yet to hear from them. Well, we are joined now by SANTRA spokesperson Edmund Elias. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Eben. Good morning, viewers.
Just tell us, what did you guys ask from the city management in writing then?
Primarily, we asked for policy review because there are parts of the city that are in a mess. Metro Police go around chasing traders, confiscating their stock on a daily basis. We don't believe that this belongs in a modern democracy, particularly in South Africa's lead economic city. We can do better policy-wise. There are models, there are examples that work better. I refer specifically to the Central Johannesburg Partnership management model, where public space is efficiently managed by the corporates. What they are saying about traders being untidy, crime, etc., does not apply to this managed zone. So we're actually asking for policy review.
And you've had no response from the city. What does that say?
Well, I think it's difficult for us to answer that, but it is problematic when our lead city doesn't respond. I think we need to take into account that Johannesburg is bearing the brunt of urbanization, 2% GDP growth. The formal sector will never absorb the unemployed. It has to. This is the only point of entry into the economy for many, many people. And I think we deserve a better deal, and I really can't answer why the city doesn't respond.
Just tell us, your members, what are they... if you can take us back, what are they upset about? We know what's happened in the city, but what are the gripes that they now have with the city?
I think our members believe the only way forward is public space management. Security guards, cleaning wherever there are congested areas. To simply imagine that we're not there and to believe that we're going to evaporate just won't happen. We need to be managed. We're part of the economy. We need to be integrated with urban renewal. I think that's the wish.
And at the moment you feel that you guys are not being integrated, you're being left out in the cold?
That's correct. I think Johannesburg is an integrated economy. We create a vibe when we're managed. In fact, the managed parts of the city, tourists are now walking unescorted. And what we're saying, what works in one part of the city should be rolled out all over. Whereas Johannesburg could in fact become a model for a national policy. Because I think we've just heard from our president that there will be a national small business cabinet post. And we believe that it is important that this thing be rolled out nationally, but we have to start somewhere. We need a pilot project, and Johannesburg is the ideal place for that pilot project.
How many people are affected, and how does it affect lives at the moment?
Well, there's no database, but in the CBD itself, we believe there are 8,000 people affected or more who are basically branded as illegal. We must remember it's never difficult for those in authority to brand the poor illegal. And what we're saying is there needs to be a better rollout between legal and illegal. We need more legal trading spaces. People are just not going to disappear. They're just going to remain, run and bribe. And that's what we're trying to move away from.
And what do you say to the city, who seem to be not engaging at the moment? We've also tried to get hold without success. Just tell us, what is your engagement now going forward to get this problem sorted?
Well, we've struck a partnership with Wits Architecture and Planning Department. We've developed a technical team. We're also in partnership with Central Johannesburg Partnership, who are a corporate management entity. And we're now planning to make a joint approach to the city that's corporate, trader and academics, in the hope of getting a better result. And I think in the coming days we're hoping for better.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I'm going to try and get hold of the city again, and hopefully we'll get a response from them within the next working week. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you.
That's the spokesperson of Santra, Edmund Elias, who joined us this morning. Now, taxi violence has resurfaced in the Cape Peninsula. 7 people have been killed in the latest violence. Communities say they live in fear as taxi associations fight over routes.
A community at war with itself. Gunshots ringing out almost daily. Gangsterism, turf and drug wars, the order of the day. Recently, taxi violence also flared up.
Vryheid, which was traditionally mainly a coloured area, now has quite a significant black population, and as a result there were a number of black taxi operators who wanted routes in there and started operating illegally.
Permits were allocated to the newcomers, but this led to even more violence.
They have now decided to invade our route and use all kinds of attempts to destabilize it.
To resolve the matter, I think now it is enough, because our commuters is on a risk.
The provincial government has again tried to intervene to stop the bloodshed.
It goes without reason that people are traumatized, that people are upset, people are frustrated, but also they don't feel safe.
No arrests have been made. Nomao Solwandle, SABC News, Cape Town.
Gautrain recently announced that fare prices will be increased. Commuters travelling from Hatfield in Pretoria to Park Station in Johannesburg and those using the OR Tambo International Airport service in the morning peak period will pay more than other commuters now. Gautrain's management agency said last week that they won't lose commuters due to the increase, but a change in ridership patterns is what they expect. We are joined by Gautrain Operations Executive Errol Braithwaite this morning. Thanks for joining us, Errol.
Eben, good to be here. Thank you.
Just run us through the fares, the increases, and then your thinking.
Well, Eben, what we've done this time is to introduce a 3-tiered fare structure. We've now got a red zone, an orange zone, and a green zone. Red zone is peak of the peak period, and also only in one direction, so only in the peak direction. Yeah. Orange, slightly what we call the shoulder period, and then, of course, green is off-peak. And the idea is that if you are forced to travel peak of the peak, I'm afraid you're going to pay a premium fare. And, of course, if you can travel off-peak in green zone, then the difference is up to 30%. So the purpose really is to try and incentivize people to modify their travel patterns so that ultimately we can accommodate more people on the train.
Why the increase? What's the aim behind it at the moment?
Well, this is part of our annual fare increase. 1st of June every year, I'm afraid, is fare increase time. Generally speaking, we try and keep it comparable to inflation. Yeah. But as I say, this year we've managed to do a little bit of a mixture, where in the peak of the peak, I'm afraid you're going to be a bit ahead of inflation. If you are able to travel off-peak, in fact, you'll be saving some money.
Just for those viewers in other parts of the country and continent, can you just give us sort of the numbers, what the sort of fees? So let's say Hatfield to Johannesburg to Park Station in absolute peak time. What would that sort of put you out of pocket?
Well, Hatfield to Park Station, which is the longest trip on the whole of the Gautrain, in peak of the peak will cost you 68 Rand, one direction. In the orange zone, 62 Rand, and in the green zone, 49 Rand. So you can see it's quite a big differential depending on when you're able to travel. I should just mention as well, Eben, that it only operates in the peak flow direction. You know, the freeway between Johannesburg and Pretoria in the mornings is very congested coming southwards. Same on the Gautrain.
You can't move, really.
You can't move. So on the Gautrain, this red zone fare will only be applicable coming southwards in the morning and westwards from the airport towards, in fact, from Rhodesfield Station towards Sandton, not in the reverse direction.
Now, the response, what has it been like since the announcement? I saw the DA coming and criticising it as exorbitant and exclusive. What's your response to that kind of comments?
Look, to be frank, it's very difficult to respond to those sort of comments. You know, there are some politicians that no matter what you do, it's wrong. You know, on day one, they complain because, you know, the fare box revenue isn't high enough. And when you put the fares up, then they complain that the fares are too high. The truth of the matter, though, Eben, is, you know, I think by any objective measure, the Gautrain is an extremely efficiently run system. It's very cost-effective. By international benchmarks, it's right up there by any objective measure. So, of course, none of us you know, like to have fare increases, but we live in the real world, and that's the nature of it.
It's the nature of an economy that's growing, really. Wanted to now ask you about this riding patterns that you expect to change. How do you expect those to change?
Well, what we're trying to do is to incentivize people to use the train system more during shoulder times and off-peak times, and not only in the peak hour of the you know, peak direction. What we're finding, Eben, is that on a typical weekday at the moment, we're carrying about 58,000 people, and about 15% of those travel in 1 hour. So we do need to spread that out a little bit in order to make the system more efficient again. Of course, what we're also trying to do is to incentivize people to use the bus service to access the train service more and more. And so what you'll see is that we haven't increased the bus fares at all. And the reason for that, obviously, is that our parking facilities at all of the stations are now close to capacity. So, you know, short of extending parking facilities, we need to encourage more bus use.
So even on the Gautrain, people still love to take their car right there for the convenience once, I suppose. But I wanted to ask you about the other services, weekend trains. You've had Gautrain's big night out. Just report back on that and how it's been received by commuters.
Well, the Big Night Out was really a fantastic event for us and very, very well received by members of the public. On that one day, we carried an additional 17,000 people that we wouldn't normally have carried. And it certainly was a very successful pilot for us. You remember one of the objectives was to test how we could operate train services later into the evenings on a Saturday night. And of course, this is one of the things that we'd like to roll out in the not-too-distant future, later train services on Friday as well as Saturday evenings.
Well, fantastic. I hope that the commuters won't let you down, because the service work, I use it. It's a fantastic addition to the infrastructure in Johannesburg. Thank you.
Thank you, Eben.
That's Earl Braithwaite, who is, well, the operations executive of the Gautrain here in Johannesburg. There'll be a fares increase, but it happens every year on the 1st of June. So let's not get ourselves into a tiz over that. Let's take a look at what you are talking about on social media, of course, at SABC Newsroom. That's where we are. Akusua Platika says, elections are over. Jacob Zuma has announced his cabinet. PSL is done. Champions League is finished. Now it's time for exams. It's Monday morning. Your life is hard. Sage says, how? Zuma's cabinet? So many new ministries. I thought Ministry of Magic would pop up. Yes, everyone's a comedian on a Monday morning. Dan Moyane says, Pravin Gordhan's local government cabinet appointment is a good sign that Zuma wants to sort out local governance issues. Sydney Bapela says, what a great cabinet. Viva Zuma. Short and sweet. Alex and the crew says, a very good morning to our people. President Jacob Zuma has announced his cabinet. What do you think of it? Now, time for us to look at our Facebook page. There have been mixed reactions to President Jacob Zuma's new cabinet, most of it positive. There's been some shuffling around, dropping of ministers, and the addition of new ministries. Economic Freedom Fighters leader Julius Malema returns to the North Gauteng High Court today to challenge his sequestration. Then also there's more on the Oscar Pistorius case on our page. Go check it out on our Facebook page. All of those stories, more detail right there on our Facebook page. It's Newsroom, of course, on Facebook. Just type in Newsroom and it pops up. Time for us to take another break. We'll be back with more right after this.
Your World provides trusted world, continent and local stories. We deliver breaking news from across the globe and information on the latest top stories on business, technology, politics and sport. Analysis of the big global business and economic issues as they affect consumers and investors. Make sure you don't miss Your World, weekdays between 11 and 12 midnight. We keep the nation fully informed.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a quick look at our top stories. South Africa has a new cabinet. Last night, President Jacob Zuma announced changes in finance and the security cluster. New faces has been brought in and some ministers have lost their jobs. Nhlanhla is now the finance minister. Members of the new cabinet are expected to focus on the struggling economy, which has been battling to create much-needed jobs and alleviate poverty. 7 people have died in taxi violence that has flared up again on the Cape Peninsula. Taxi associations are fighting over routes after permits were allocated to newcomers. Locals say they live in fear. No arrests have been made. At least 24 people have been killed when Boko Haram gunmen raided a village in northeast Nigeria. The militant group have recently stepped up deadly attacks on villages. Meanwhile, in the Nigerian capital of Abuja, prayers were held calling for peace, unity and the safe return of more than 200 schoolgirls abducted by Boko Haram last month. Demonstrators have vowed to continue their protests until the safe return of the girls. Now, President Jacob Zuma has announced his new cabinet in which 14 ministers retained their old portfolios. Cyril Ramaphosa is now the country's deputy president. Former Justice Minister Jeff Radebe moves to the presidency to head the combined planning and monitoring ministries, and the new finance minister will be Nhlanhla. All was revealed in Pretoria last night.
Deputy President is Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. With regard to the ministers, the minister in the presidency is Mr. Jeff Radebe. The Minister of Women in the presidency is Ms. Susan Shabangu. The Minister of Justice and Correctional Services is Mr. Michael Masuta. The Minister of Public Service and Administration is Mr. Collins Chabane. The Minister of Defense and Military Veterans is Ms. Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngakula. The Minister of Home Affairs is Mr. Malusi Gigaba. The Minister of Environment Affairs is Ms. Edna Molewa. The Minister of State Security is Mr. David Mashobo. The Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services is Mr. Siyabonga Kwele. The Minister of Police is Mr. Kosinati Tleko. The Minister of Trade and Industry is Dr. Rob Davis. The Minister of Finance is Mr. Tlantla Nene. The Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries is Mr. Senzeni Zokwana. The Minister of Water and Sanitation is Ms. Nomvula Monkonyan. The Minister of Basic Education is Ms. Angie Motsekga. The Minister of Health is Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. The Minister of International Relations and Cooperation is Ms. Maite Kwane Mashaba. The Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform is Mr. Kuki Lenkwinti. The Minister of Higher Education and Training is Dr. Bonginkosi Plate Nzimande. The Minister of Economic Development is Mr. Ibrahim Patel. The Minister of Transport is Ms. Dipuo Peters. The Minister of Mineral Resources is Advocate Mwako Ramatlodi. The Minister of Social Development is Ms. Vatabile Dlamini. The Minister of Public Enterprises is Ms. Lynn Brown. The Minister of Sport and Recreation is Mr. Fiki Lembalula. The Minister of Labor is Ms. Mildred Oliphant. The Minister of Arts and Culture is Mr. Nati Mtetwa. The Minister of Public Works is Mr. Tulas Ngesi. The Minister of Small Business Development is Ms. Lindy Wezulu. The Minister of Energy is Ms. Tina Jumat Peterson. The Minister of Science and Technology is Ms. Naledi Pando. The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs is Mr. Pravin Gordon. The Minister of Communications is Ms. Faith Mutambi. The Minister of Human Settlement is Ms. Lindy Wesisulu. The Minister of Tourism is Mr. Derek Hanako.
The President's newly announced cabinet has been largely welcomed as being able to drive socio-economic transformation. The ANC believes the choice of leaders is balanced and the officials are experienced. The South African Communist Party congratulated the new appointees. The National Union of Mine Workers especially welcomed the appointment of its former president, Senzeni Zokwana, as the Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. People Against Suffering, Oppression and Poverty also praised the appointment of Malusi Gigaba to Home Affairs, saying it shows that the president took the department seriously. Meanwhile, the Economic Freedom Fighter says it is deeply concerned about the cost associated with the new cabinet. The party, however, welcomed the appointment of Nhlanhla Nene as the Minister of Finance. Meanwhile, DA leader Helen Zille is less excited about the new cabinet. She says it does not inspire confidence that South Africa's major challenges will be tackled effectively in the president's second term.
I also noticed that several key people have been dropped. I thought Tina Jumat was one of them who should have been dropped. Unfortunately, she's back in a critical portfolio, energy, and I think that that is a recipe for chaos in an already chaotic department. Some of the omissions are very noteworthy. Yunus Karim, I thought he was doing a very, very good job. He's not there. I noticed that Martinus van Schalkwyk isn't there. Paul Mashatile, one of President Zuma's old foes, is not there. So he will have not been brought back. Connie September, Ben Martins, Lulu Ngwana, many people not coming back. But I really do think that most of the deputy ministers' positions are there to settle political scores or as patronage to hold President Zuma's team together and not because it's necessary to run an efficient ministry.
Now, Diepsloot is a densely populated settlement north of Johannesburg, unfortunately often on the front pages or in the news for tragic reasons. Last year we had the murder of twin toddlers as well as other cases of child murders and rape. Hope in this township, however, is not lost, and organisations like the Diepsloot Youth in Action are on a mission to turn things around. The DYA is a community-based non-profit organisation established in 2010 aimed at contributing to social development of the youth of Diepsloot to eradicate them of crime, drug and alcohol abuse as well. We are joined by the co-founder and president this morning, Nkanyiso Ntuli. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, sir.
Are things improving in Diepsloot for people who live there?
Yeah, definitely there's a little bit of change because of since we've been starting the organization looking at developing the youth in terms of arts and culture, sports and recreation. So I think we have tried by all means to change the mentality of the youth because the state has improved from looking before, like we had more challenges like there are youth fighting. Of course, other youth were unable to go to the other extensions because of some gangsterism and all those things. So I guess definitely ever since we introduced the organization, there's been a little bit of change and development.
And are the youth of Diepsloot, are they getting involved with the programs?
Definitely. We have a lot of youth that has joined our organization because of our, in arts and culture, we have about plus minus 20 youth that is in our activities. Then we also have, we're hosting about plus minus 60 youth per week on our activities, sports and recreation, arts and culture.
I wanted to ask you a bit more detail on the Diepsloot Youth in Action movement. Tell us what you guys are doing and what other programs are you involved in?
So basically what we're doing, we're dealing with theatre, poets, music, of which those are the main activities that are running now, and also including dance and cheerleading, which just started about a month ago. Then in sports, we're currently running with a football team called the Eminent Black Boys Academy. Then we are also looking to introduce like netball and also add more activities as time goes.
There we see nice pictures now of Diepsloot, which is, just north of Johannesburg. Tell us a little bit about daily life in Diepsloot today. What is it like for a young person to grow up in this township, and what is life like now for those who live there?
No, like living in Diepsloot, it's more challenging because of we know it's more dominated by informal settlement, and there are a lot of things that are happening around which may disturb the mentality of a young person who's still growing in that township. So definitely for sure, kinds of development like Diepsloot Youth in Action, those organizations are needed to keep the mentality of the youth refreshed and busy instead of going around the township being involved with drugs and alcohol abuse.
Are the people of Diepsloot living the 20 years of freedom ideal?
I can't definitely witness that because of if we're still living in a township with the informal settlement, then we have sometimes we've got trains, blockage trains and all those things. Then we have got few youth who are still doesn't have access to education and sort of all those things. So I can't definitely witness that they are living to live.
Yeah. And who funds your organization? How do you guys go about raising money for the kind of campaigns that you put together?
So in most cases, we've been doing contributions ourselves, and we've been also asking for assistance from parents. So then in early this year, we just got the fund from the One Young World, which are still the guys who gave us a social grant to develop and also draw up our activities.
We see your Facebook page now. How do people get involved with you and your organization?
So we communicate with people on social media, Facebook page and also Twitter. Then we also have our eminent Black Boys website, so we were able to get us online.
And tell me about some of the great success stories that you guys have had.
Our first story started when we also got the grant from the One Young World amongst the 100 who competed to get the grant, of which it's a UK-based organization. Then also just got the recent news that I've been also uploaded to be one of the candidates who will be attending the summit, the One Young World Summit in Dublin, Ireland in October. Then one of the greatest news, we were able to co-host some of the soapbox events around Diepsloot in partnership with Nkulu Freehead. Then recently now we're able to take our so many Black Boys soccer team to a league in TUT. So that's the development we've made. Then later last year we were able to be part of the top 10 groups that we will be working with the National State Theatre for a period of 2 years, 2014-2015.
Tell us about your relationship with Nkulu Freehead. I see Eric de Ridder standing here behind. Tell us about that relationship, how you guys are working together.
It's quite a good relationship. We met Nkulu Freehead last year, early June, around the 6th of June. So actually they wanted to host the Diepsloot soapbox in Diepsloot. So we partnered with them, and ever since we've been working together. They've assisted us a lot in many things.
Well, all the best going forward. We hope that you have more success in Diepsloot, and we don't always see the bad stories on the front pages, the babies being killed and raped and so forth.
No, definitely we'll have a lot. It's just that the matter of us getting fundings and so on, then we can make a change in Diepsloot.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, sir.
Finally, in Ukraine, after declaring victory in a round of that country's presidential elections, confectionery magnate Petro Poroshenko says it's time to draw the violence, or to bring the violence in that country to an end.
Overall across Ukraine, Poroshenko is at 55.9%, Timoshenko at 12.9%.
Ukrainian confectionery billionaire Petro Poroshenko claims Ukraine's presidency after exit polls gave him an absolute majority in a first round of voting. The man known as the Chocolate King offers choice words to his supporters.
We can state today that this election, which is crucial for the future of our country, has taken place. And you see that all exit polls without exception, which were held by the most credible polling organizations in the country and the whole world, show with very small discrepancies that the election is over after the first round and the country has a new president.
І країна має нового президента.
Я переконана в тому.
Ukrainian politician Yulia Tymoshenko conceded to the victory.
Проголосували.
The election marks the culmination of a revolution that erupted last November, forcing pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych to flee the country. But pro-Moscow separatists in the provinces of Donetsk and Lugansk blocked the vote because it would imply they were still part of Ukraine.
Well, finally on a Monday, Springbok captain Jean de Villiers has been ruled out for approximately 8 weeks with a knee injury and will miss the incoming Test series next month. After experiencing some discomfort in his left knee on Saturday morning, de Villiers pulled out of the Stormers Super Rugby match against the Cheetahs at Newlands in Cape Town. De Villiers underwent a scope in the city yesterday, and the prognosis is that he will be out for almost 2 months. He will hopefully be back by the start of the Rugby Championship that starts in August this year. Let's take a fun look at what you are talking about on social media. Please remember to send us your views to @SABC Newsroom on Twitter. Melisizwe Notwala says, imagine EFF without Malema in Parliament. SARS sequestration, yes, that will be a big test. King says, Julius Malema, hope things go well for you on Monday. Selo, yes, of course. The sequestration case continues this morning. Opsan says, Julius Malema was answered to SARS. Klaar, finish and klaar, he means. Yes, we all have to answer to SARS in the end. Khalamidiwe says, I hope that the court will rule in Julius Malema's favor. with regards to the sequestration order by SARS, we need him in Parliament and in South African politics. Those are your views coming in on this Monday morning. We love your views, we love your interactions. More importantly, we love your pictures. Send it to our Facebook page or to our Twitter account. If they're good, we'll use it. Newsroom has been broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park in Johannesburg. We are live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 with the highlight rebroadcast at 2 in the afternoon and a repeat at 5 a.m. the following morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube at that time, with the entire show then available on demand on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.
SABC.